8, current business, discussion and possible action on the following: IT service, review of current concerns with our current provider, Managepoint. Those concerns are primarily from the office and within the fire department. Jamie, do you have an overview or summary that you'd like to talk about?
I placed the summary in the board packet and it's up online. We had discussions with Fisher and with Supervisor Laska for a little bit more detail regarding the issues within the town office and the fire department.
Chief Buchholz? Do you have some concerns you want to address regarding this?
Our main concern is when our link with NetView, with our CAD system, the county goes down. We rely on that to produce our run reports and to get our times and to get our dispatch information. When NetView goes down, we don't get that information. Especially if it goes down on a weekend, we don't get it until maybe Monday or Tuesday. We have to rely on them to get the CAD monitor and the operation back up and running. Sometimes it gets pretty critical on the phone trying to get information from the dispatcher. It creates some delays for us.
Is that problem here local, or is that county equipment, or?
It occurs on both ends sometimes, is my understanding. That's what I've been told. It's done on both ends.
When you say it's on both ends, I mean, what is my understanding of that CAD equipment? Isn't that all county equipment? I mean, physically, the printer, the router.
You know, the only thing that is the counties is our CAD monitor, the device here. Well, actually, we own it, but the county maintains that. All the other information comes comes from the county to our server being earned. If our server isn't functioning, we don't receive it. And apparently there's something that goes on when our server goes down, it has to be restarted, it doesn't automatically restart.
So these incidents that happen, our server has gone down in some capacity?
Occasionally it has been, yeah.
Or the internet.
Or the internet, yes. I have to admit some of our problems were resolved when we went back to Time Warner Internet. It happened much less frequently.
So this hasn't, has this been a current problem, or has it been a past problem?
It just was down on the 9th and 10th of December. It was down.
Supervisor Fisher?
Yeah, I guess a big picture comment. I did sit personally with Clerk Salentine and with Chief Buchholz for about a half hour, 45 minutes yesterday, and they shared their concerns with me. And I guess just a big picture summary, I am persuaded that they're legitimate concerns. They have been ongoing for an extended period of time, and I do have a concern that they impact upon their ability to do their work and our ability to deliver town services. So without going into details, I'm persuaded based on the time I spent with them that these are real and legitimate concerns.
Dan, has it been happening more or less since we changed Time Warner?
It's decreased since we've gone back to Time Warner. It's been reduced.
It was worse before?
Oh, much worse. It would go down sometimes once a week.
We have representatives from both our current provider and from our proposed provider, Gordon Fleisch, here in Town Hall. If anybody from the board has questions for either one of those.
I'd like Dave Steiger from Managepoint to kind of clue me in on my understanding of that equipment from the county with regard to fire and firehouse. And I know we have, log capability on our server if it's quote unquote going down.
Yes.
What can you offer us?
Well, why don't we, I don't know how much time I have, but,
As much as we need to get it straightened out.
from a clarification from the CAD system, there's two components. There's in-house here on the server, there's Firehouse software. It has what's called a CAD monitor, and that is what monitors the calls that the county produces, and they leave that information on their system, and your CAD monitor will reach out to their system to pull that information back into Firehouse for the fire department to be able to look up information, runs that they've been on, things of that nature. As far as the infrastructure, the kind of the separating point between the county and the town, the county has a router here, and if you need me to get to any technical stuff, I can, but I'll try to speak in layman's terms. That router actually is the starting point for the connection from the town over to the county. And we have, since I've been working, my company's been working with the town, we've had repeated incidents where either that router stops working, and we also have, and I have copies of tickets, work orders that we get when we get calls that the system isn't working, where the county side of the system, something is not working over on that side. Anything from when they put a call into the system that's not dropping the information into, we'll call a bucket or a folder, that the CAD monitor on your server will go look to see if there's anything out there. Information isn't getting put into that bucket correctly. The other thing that happens is when a call is produced, the county system actually can see a printer that's in the fire department and will reference that printer, and they produce what's called a rip and run. So it's basically when anybody in the fire department, whether it's a volunteer or full-time person, is here, or somebody comes in, they can grab that information off the printer and take that with them on the call. What happens on many occasions is what is called the print queue that sits on the county side stops working. Now, we've documented all these issues, and the way we have to go about troubleshooting the issue is we have to call the county's IT support desk, log a ticket with them, and then they have a particular individual that is responsible for that system. And at that point, it's out of our hands as to being able to get the system working again until they get involved. We've had, the router here has been replaced at least once that I remember in my, when I was physically doing the work. Prior to my staff, who now I have a lead technician that handles the town. We've had just repeated issues. The internet, when it goes down, that will have an impact on, obviously, then there's no communication because the county's connection, they call it a VPN tunnel, it's a private connection using the internet as a transport. If the internet's down, the VPN tunnel's down, they can't see you, you can't see them. So those have been primarily the issues with the firehouse system. We did go through, when I came on board to provide service, the firehouse software, I believe it was in 2010, end of 2010, was at least one or two versions behind. We got involved in helping upgrade that system, and it based on the tickets that I've looked at, because since my engineers have taken over supporting the details and working on the software, it seems like every time we do some type of update to the firehouse system, it creates a hiccup in the software. And so we work then with Firehouse to be their hands and eyes and make modifications to the firehouse system. So, does that give you kind of a overview of, does that answer some of the questions? So there is a delineation between what is a town issue versus what is a county issue, so.
Has our server gone down recently, last 90 days, 120 days?
Yeah, I talked to Evan Olson, who is my primary engineer that is assigned to your county. He's your primary engineer. And he apologizes for not being here. He and his wife just had a baby, so he couldn't be here. Otherwise, he would probably answer a few more of these in a little bit more detail. But I did ask him, and I went through the tickets. There was an issue, I want to say it was about 4 months ago, that the server did go down, and it went down on the weekend. And Evan actually did come in on either it was a Saturday or a Sunday to get the server back up and running. It had something to do with, I believe it was a memory module that failed, and he did make arrangements with somebody to come in.
I choose to differ. It may have been John that he had actually called me. I had to physically go into the server room and shut down a couple of things. I do not recall that being 4 months ago, though. I
Okay.
recall that within the last month.
Last month? Okay, okay, I wasn't aware of that issue.
So is that it, just one time?
I have a question, Mr. Tigger, do you have a copy, we have a memo here from Crooks Valentine and Chief Buchholz, December 6th, do you have that? A
Yes, I
copy?
do.
Could you maybe simply reference those as highlights, and at least my takeaway in reading of that and my meeting with them, my takeaway as main concern is timing. Could you maybe just address the items that are included in that memo for us, please?
Would that be the second paragraph there?
Well, the memo, if you could just run through the memo
Oh,
of
okay.
December 6th for us,
Just all the
please.
paragraphs?
Sure.
Okay. Well, in regards to the timing when, specifically to the fire department, like I said before, as soon as we're notified that there's an issue with the fire department system, and we check the system on your side, and if everything looks good on your side, we then will check to see if we can get to the county side. And sometimes if the county side, we can see it, but the system is not able to get the information, at that point, we have to call the help desk. And at times, and I've got tickets showing it that we've had to call the county, and it's been sometimes 2-3 days before somebody gets back to us to troubleshoot the problem. Generally, it's within a day, but there's usually a delay between when we call the help desk and somebody from the county will actually respond to us.
Okay, just leave them, and I think we understand there are issues with the county dispatch. I think leaving that out for a minute, and my understanding is the concern is a little bit bigger, broader with regard to timeliness of response as a general thing. Do you have any comments about that response?
Well, in a broader respect, as soon as we are aware of an issue that we cannot pick up from a monitoring perspective, because the monitoring systems are not always gonna pick up every little issue. If there's an error message or something on a desktop from Microsoft Word, we're not gonna see that kind of thing. So as soon as we are made aware of it, we enter a ticket, and then that's kind of the initial point of contact. In our agreement, it's, within 1 hour is when, if you call us and nobody's there to answer the phone, which is generally not the case, somebody will respond back to you, at least acknowledge, I've got the issue, and then we determine, kind of triage whether or not the issue is something that needs to be addressed immediately, or is it one of these things that, hey, can we schedule a time to work on the issue? So I do know that there's a statement here about one particular incident about utilizing a document that took over 4 months to be addressed. We did start troubleshooting the issue. It was a very complex issue, and it did take a long time for us to figure out exactly what the problem was. It was extremely unique. We actually, on our side, we have a relationship with Microsoft that they allow us to call them for things of very complex nature. And we actually had to engage Microsoft to troubleshoot this issue. And Evan was the one that actually did that. And, you know, it's unfortunate it took as long as it did, but we were able to resolve the issue. So, and, you know, from my understanding, it was one system. It was one of the staff that had the issue, and it was intermittent. So trying to pinpoint some of those problems sometimes can be a challenge. You know, so you know, we worked through it though, and we were able to resolve the issue.
And I guess the issue with that being said, when we're asked, being any issue and being handled, I guess the response back is, when we ask again, is this being addressed? And there's really like, oh yes, I will, you know, I'm working on that. Time frame, I mean, it doesn't, I guess, for us, and I clarify that, saying, well, this is a pertinent part of her job to get this done, we need this. If it's going to take that long, I guess the respect for what I would consider would be, if we're continually asking for an update, why aren't we getting that back? Why aren't we saying, oh, well, we're working with Microsoft or any of that, because that's not being addressed.
Well, from my understanding,
So,
my apologies, my understanding in talking with Evan, that there was a process of applying a fix, an attempted fix, and testing and waiting to see if the problem, you know, came back. And he said that he actually communicated with your staff that was having the issue, and would ask them, is there still a problem? And the response was, no, it seems to be good right now. You know, at that point.
That was, yes, a couple days ago, not last week, I should say, because the issue was being addressed and addressed probably a couple weeks ago, that it was actually finally working, and when he had said he had fixed it, and she was saying, I asked if it was fixed, and she's like, it's okay, because I think it's improved, it's not to what maybe she thinks it should be. So they were just working on that, but that was only a couple weeks ago.
Okay, well.
So, and unfortunately Evan isn't here, and that's understandable.
Sure. But, you know, in regards to that, I mean, if my guys ask, you know, if the problem is fixed, and the response back is, it looks to be fixed, you know, we try not to, but we generally will close the issue until we hear back, you know, if somebody has an issue. So, you know, in regards to, and I'm making an assumption, we're talking about the document that couldn't be opened, and it was intermittent, and it was only, I believe it was an attachment to an email, that it was only certain individuals, and it didn't happen all the time. You know, if he's getting feedback from the user that the problem seems to have been resolved, you know, at that point, we're done with the issue, so.
Do you log that in your trouble ticket? So when Evan or John or whomever's on the phone, we would be able to see that interaction, or in most cases, we'd be able to see that conversation's taking place in your trouble tickets?
Yes, there are notes. I mean, sometimes they make them a little cryptic on our side, but there are notes that'll say, you know, talk to end user, problem appears to be resolved, you know, and then they'll state, you know, closing the ticket. And so they do note those things.
Do you have the capability to provide us copies of those tickets?
Sure, yes, I do.
I'd make a motion to table this item to January, whatever the first meeting is, so that we can get those trouble tickets in review. So I would make a motion to table item 8A1 and 2.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nay. Motion carries. On to B,